told your friend you're not okay.
Today, top K-pop once again delivered one of those moments that made global news feeds stop breathing. Incheon International Airport suddenly became the center of global attention when the 7 members of BTS, Namjoon, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, Taehyung, and Jungkook, finally set foot back in South Korea after completing an intensive filming schedule in Portugal for their highly anticipated new album, ARIRANG. Even before the sun had fully risen, the atmosphere at the arrivals terminal was already different. Cameras were flashing even before the plane landed, lines of reporters crowded the pickup area, and fans arrived with a mix of longing, pride, and unstoppable curiosity about how these global superstars would emerge after such a long and secretive creative process. As the automatic doors opened and each BTS member emerged, their aura of togetherness was immediately palpable. Each member performed with a style that reflected their individuality, yet still exuded the harmony of a group that had traveled a long journey together. There was a calmness, a maturity, and a new energy that only those who have followed BTS's journey from the beginning can understand. But as often happens, public attention quickly focused on one figure who captured the world's attention without even doing anything, JJungkook. As soon as he stepped into the arrivals area, the atmosphere seemed to change in an instant. It wasn't because he wore flashy clothes or made any grand gestures, but because of the powerful aura emanating from him. Jungkook appeared in a simple look, but it was precisely that simplicity that made him all the more captivating. His hair was styled naturally, his face was calm, and his eyes, those always talking eyes, were the center of attention that day. Many fans described Jungkook's gaze as different, as if radiating the weight of a long journey and the happiness only someone who has just completed an important chapter in their life possesses. There was depth there, a story yet to be told, an energy that felt mature and powerful. Fan comments flooded social media within minutes. Some said Jungkook looked more mature than before, others said his gaze contained a mix of fatigue and contentment, and many said they were left speechless by the look in his eyes that seemed to penetrate the screen. Some even compared Jungkook's aura that day to his early debut. The difference was that his gaze now carried experience, calm, and a deep understanding of who he was and where he was going. The lengthy shoot in Portugal clearly had its effects. The new environment, the distance from home, the creative pressure, global expectations, and the intensive work on ARIRANG seemed to give Jungkook space to grow and reflect. The album, with its culturally powerful title, was already a hot topic even before the release date was announced. Jungkook's involvement, known for his perfectionism, made fans even more eager for the final product. As he walked through the crowd, Jungkook briefly bowed his head as a sign of courtesy. It was a small gesture, but one that carried immense meaning for ARMY. When his gaze briefly met the camera, the split-second moment went viral and became the subject of analysis by thousands of fans worldwide. Even his wink became a topic of conversation, such was his influence as an artist capable of evoking emotions without uttering a single word. International media outlets also highlighted his presence, describing his gaze as hypnotic, soulful, and emotionally resonant. It's rare for a public figure to create such a powerful moment simply by walking through an airport, but Jungkook did it so naturally. While the other members stood by his side, exuding an aura of togetherness and strength, Jungkook seemed to radiate a unique emotional wave that resonated with everyone who saw him. Fans flooded the internet with slow-motion videos, close-up photos, and even lengthy threads analyzing Jungkook's subtle expressions. Every detail mattered, the direction of his gaze, the timing of his winks, even the slightest twitch of his lips. It all seemed to piece together a puzzle that depicted the emotional journey he had just embarked on. And that's true proof of Jungkook's influence. He wasn't just seen. He was felt. He was followed not just as an idol, but as someone whose journey had touched so many hearts. It's no exaggeration to say that Jungkook is now entering a new phase in his life, a deeper, quieter, yet far more powerful one. Even though the BTS members had left the arrivals area, the buzz from that moment hadn't subsided at all. In fact, as the minutes passed, the buzz surrounding Jungkook's aura that day grew even stronger. It was as if every second since his arrival in Incheon had been a puzzle piece slowly forming a bigger picture of what BTS was actually preparing for. As the black van carrying the members sped away from the airport, fans in attendance immediately shared their impressions and stories of what they had witnessed firsthand. Many noted a different atmosphere among the members, not one of tension, but rather a calmness rarely seen after a period of intense work. They seemed like they had just overcome a significant milestone and were now ready to move on with their heads held high. What caught the attention of many, however, was how Jungkook appeared far more introspective than usual. One eyewitness noted that while Jungkook still offered a small smile and a polite nod, there was a certain depth to his gestures, like someone taking home something that couldn't be seen, but could be felt. Many armies then suspected that the experience in Portugal wasn't just about filming, but also an emotional journey that shaped the tone of the ARIRANG album itself. Speculation grew even wider when several production staff members indirectly hinted that the project would be one of BTS's most personal works ever. And judging by Jungkook's performance that day, calm, mature, and meaningful, many fans were even more convinced that he played a crucial role in the album's overall concept. It didn't take long for music analysts, journalists, and even K-pop content creators to begin parsing every moment at the airport that day. They discussed how Jungkook seemed to be walking a little slower than usual, how he took a deep breath before stepping out into the crowd, and how he maintained a matter-of-fact expression, as if cherishing memories from his creative journey. Meanwhile, Top K-pop was one of the quickest channels to summarize the global reaction, stating that BTS's return this time isn't just a return from a trip abroad, it's the return of 7 artists with new stories to tell. And within that narrative, Jungkook once again became a symbol of change, unspoken words translated through meaningful glances. Within hours of their return, Korean mainstream media began publishing articles not only discussing BTS's activities in Portugal but also predicting that the album ARIRANG would herald a new era in the group's journey. Words like renewal, rebirth, and new chapter began appearing in headlines, further reinforcing the impression that this project was anything but ordinary. On the other hand, ARMY, more attentive to detail, noticed the little things that the mainstream media might have missed: the way Jungkook gripped his bag strap tighter than usual, the way he tilted his head when listening to staff calls, even the way his eyes bobbed up and down as if scanning the crowd with rapt attention. To them, these small details weren't mere gestures. They reflected the presence of an artist who increasingly understood how much the world was watching him, yet still chose to be himself, without transforming into someone who was simply performing for the cameras. What made this moment even more powerful was how the other members seemed to support Jungkook's energy. Jimin walked beside him a few steps closer than usual, Taehyung occasionally glanced at him, as if to make sure Jungkook was okay, and Namjoon seemed to pace his steps to keep them in sync. It gave the impression that the trip to Portugal had silently strengthened their bond, not with dramatic hugs, but with a deep understanding as brothers that grew from shared experiences. When night fell, and the airport finally returned to normal, the online world was still filled with clips of Jungkook replayed over and over again. Many fans said they felt like Jungkook that day had figured it all out. That there was something about the process of making ARIRANG that made him even more determined. And for those who understand BTS's journey over the years, they know, those gazes never appear without a clear reason.